I'm not sure if interesting is her way of saying that I'm exhausting. Because, yeah, I'm driven by a very strong passion. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me as we get into what the topic is, because a lot of people wonder how I got to do what I do and why I do what I do and why I do what I do with such, I guess passion is the word, but it sometimes goes beyond that to like zeal. So when I was growing up, I had half of my family's Irish and the other half's Italian, and they're very yelling and constant drama. My mother was a liberal tree hugger. My father was a conservative, so we had very interesting dinner conversations. And my dad's a butcher. So when I went to high school, I developed a really strong interest in art, and one of my teachers was a really passionate activist vegan. And he kept bringing in photos of veal farms and chicken, factories, and showing us all this stuff, and encouraged us to become vegetarians, which I decided to do on Thanksgiving Day. As my whole family sat around, my dad had the carving tools poised, and I launched into my lecture about the corpse in the middle of the table, which is really charming in only the way 14-year-olds can be. But something about it really made sense to me. My father said I was born without the gene to eat meat, because when we would have whatever we had, I would like cut it into a million pieces and put ketchup on it, whatever it was. So he said in a way he was glad to see me give up meat because I just desecrated it when they cooked it. So time went on, and there wasn't a lot of resources then. And then I discovered that soda was vegan, and Oreos were vegan, and Twizzlers were vegan. And so I had this wild array of food to eat. And then when I was 25 years old, my mother passed away at a young age of colon cancer. And I remember thinking as she went through what she went through, man, if I ever get sick, I'm never doing that. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do that. And 6 months later, I was diagnosed with stage 4 leukemia. And I thought I wasn't serious. I was sort of kidding about the if I get this. So I was going to move back to Europe and just live, in a garret somewhere, very dramatic. And I am Italian and Irish. And, so a friend of mine said, you have to meet this guy. He eats this weird food and he says it cures cancer. And I thought, great. So I met Robert, who I married. So it kind of worked out. Oops, it worked out. And he said to me, what you eat determines whether you'll get better or not. And I thought, oh, you got to be kidding me. I'm already a vegetarian. I live on Oreos and Twizzlers, but I don't eat meat. So he started me on a path that led me down the road to Chinese medicine and macrobiotics and understanding what food does. And what I discovered is that as a culture, we've kind of lost our way in understanding that food has a dramatic impact on our day-to-day life. And most of you in the audience are very, very young and at that sort of invincible age of, whatever. And if you become a vegan, it's usually because it's ethical. Right? You do it because you don't like factory farming or what we're doing to the planet or what we're doing to food, which is great. As long as within that ethical conversion, you remember that you have to eat real food. Right? What's the largest polluter of our environment? The largest polluter of our environment. It's not a trick question. And shout, like say something. When I ask a question, by the way, it's not hypothetical. Just say something. Food production. So you're close. Food production. The way we produce vegetables and meat, the largest polluter of our environment. The latest statistics show that if every single American, hear this one out, ate one meatless meal a week, not a day, a week, we could reverse climate change, period. You can continue to drive your bloated SUV, not really. You can continue to waste, do whatever you're doing, right? One meatless meal a week could reverse climate change because 70% of our pollution is coming from meat production. 18% of greenhouse gases are caused by meat production. So just cutting back every American one meal a week doesn't put farmers out of business. They can still farm and do what they do, but we could reverse climate change. If that's not an incentive to pick up a red pepper and eat it, I'm not really sure what is, right? So for me, we as a culture, particularly Americans, since we're the culture that wastes, literally wastes 1 out of 3 calories produced. Think about that. That's a third of the food that's produced we waste. with that waste is the equivalent of turning on the tap, and over the course of a year, 40 trillion quarts of water run down the drain. Because with every calorie you waste the resources that were there to create those calories. So what do? Well, it's really easy to live on junk. It's really, really easy. When I was a kid, which was a very long time ago, very long time, I'm like a fossil. No, I'm only kidding. But I have to tell you, I teach at the restaurant school on a regular basis, and at the restaurant school, because it's a private school and we grandfathered in somehow, we have no elevators. And our purchasing department's on the bottom floor and our kitchens are on the third floor. So we're always running up and down the stairs with cases of produce, which is great for the students because they get fit. But I'm running up and down the stairs with them. And one of my students said to me this last term, "Chef, how do you run up and down these steps all day? Like, you gotta be 40. And I said, "Listen, I'm way older than 40. I told them how old I was, and she said to me exactly this: "Oh my God, you are older than death." Okay, but I don't look it. Oh my God. So anyway, you age really well when you eat a plant-based diet. I'm just saying. I am 80. No, I'm not. I'm not. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so I said I was teaching, blah, blah, blah. I lost my train of thought. Oh, so the impact that we make, it's really easy to eat junk food. When I was a kid, a long time ago, if we wanted to have a cake, what happened? Those of us of a certain age in the room, what had to happen if you wanted to have a cake? You had to get the stuff out and bake it, and maybe in a couple of hours you had a cake. Now you walk into the Wawa, you buy a cake. We have no special occasion foods anymore. Everything's a special occasion. You can have whatever you want, whenever you want, which is great because we are the country that we are. It's kind of not so good for our waistlines, though, or the environment, because now everything's packaged. Everyone has seen or had a Twinkie in their life? You know, everyone know what Twinkies are? Show of hands, Twinkies? Okay. So when I was a kid, Twinkies had 12 ingredients. Cream, milk, eggs, sugar. How many ingredients do you think Twinkies have now? 26. 38. It reads like a Russian novel, and none of those ingredients are cream or eggs. So it's really interesting how food has changed in an effort of processed food companies to create things that are cheaper, easier for us. During World War II, women left the home for really en masse the first time to work outside the home. The war ended, men came back, and now all these companies were saying to women, "Listen, you don't have to cook. Let us do that for you. Let's just give you these little meals and little trays with foil on the top. No mess. There you go. Dinner." And women were like, "You know what? There is life outside the kitchen. I mean, I don't want to be Donna Reed anymore with my little apron tied when my husband comes home. Maybe I want to do something else." I'm not blaming it on women. Being one, not blaming it on women. But during that time, we stopped cooking. Families lost the moral imperative to cook. When we stopped cooking, we lost the connection to nature. When humans lose the connection to nature, we start to think that we're the boss, that we got this. We can control everything from the weather to everything, because we got this. The truth is, we're a product of nature. So when you look at us now as a modern culture, we are exactly what we created. Exactly. Down to the fact that we have stronger degenerative disease now, down to the fact that the planet is polluted. We created exactly what we are. So it's really funny. My husband, who is far more evolved than me and far more philosophical, if people start complaining about whatever is going on in the world, he always says, the world is perfect. It's just what we made. It's perfect just like it is. When we want to change it, we will. When I was studying Chinese medicine and macrobiotics back a while ago, we were up in the Berkshire Mountains, which is exquisite if anyone's ever been to Western Massachusetts. It's the most beautiful place, and there was a local, sort of a refinery type business who was polluting the mountain streams. So a bunch of us got together, we're making signs, we're going to go yell and scream and protest in front of this, company. And our sensei walked by, a little Japanese guy, and he said in broken English, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Oh, we're protesting the water pollution, and we're going to get out there and we're going to show them, and the press is coming, and this and that." And he said, "Don't waste time." "What are you talking about?" And he said, This environment will never be clean until this environment is clean. When we eat food that's appropriate for humans, then we realize that nature is nature, and we need this planet to survive, and it will all clean itself up. So please, instead of protest, become cooking teachers. And we were all like, what? All these years later, I think, yeah, go become a cooking teacher. Teach people how to cook natural foods and the planet will change. I know that sounds dramatic, right? I remember when I finished studying with him, I wanted to be a lecturer, not a cooking teacher. And he said to me, oh, you'll make a great cooking teacher. And I was like, why? Because I'm a girl? I don't want to teach cooking, I want to lecture. He said, okay. So I gave my first lecture, which was okay, you know, your first anything is never great. And I remember thinking that I had just talked for 3 hours about food, but I didn't give anybody any tools. I talked for 2 hours about carrots, but everybody left the room not knowing what to do with a carrot, so to speak. I mean, everybody knows what to do with a carrot, but that's probably not a good example. But then I thought if I became a cooking teacher, I get to teach you what to do with a carrot. So I'm going to become a cooking teacher. And I went back and I told him, I said, you know, I'm a genius. I'm going to become a cooking teacher. And he went, oh, very good. So, you know, I always feel like Grasshopper in that bad kung fu show. You know, and you can take the stone from my hand, and I never quite get the stone. So as I evolved, and as my teaching evolved, and as my life evolved on its own, working, what I realized is when you adopt more of a plant-based approach, I'm not one of those vegans. I'm just going to tell you right here, right now. You don't have to hide your leather shoes from me. I want to see your leather bag if it's gorgeous. You know what I mean? They're going to kill the cow anyway. You may as well get something out of it. I said that in front of a vegan conference once. It didn't go over very well. You could have dropped a pin in the room. Anyway, so I'm not one of those vegans. I don't judge. Everybody is where they are. My concern is that when you choose food, that you choose food that's actually food. Everybody's got, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian or you eat plant-based or you eat remotely healthy, you've got that one person in your life who comes up and goes, what about Uncle Fred? Lived to be 140, smoked 12 packs a day, ate a cow, and drank scotch. What about him? And you go, well, okay. When Uncle Fred was a kid, where was the cow eating? In the pasture behind Uncle Fred's house. The cigarettes didn't have pesticides on them. And the scotch, well, that was scotch. I'm sure they haven't changed that much. So now things have changed, right? When he was eating that meat, it had less than 10 grams of saturated fat per ounce. So a steak was nothing, less than 2 grams, sorry. It was nothing. Now, a factory farm steak has more than 10 grams. So think about that. Like the heart disease and obesity and type 2 diabetes that we associate with our modern diet doesn't come because we eat meat. It comes because we eat that meat. It comes because the steak that's on your plate, the hot dog that's on your plate, the chicken breast that's on your plate isn't the same as it was if it was grass-fed and organic, if it was produced the way Mother Nature intended. So when we eat food that's not natural, I mean, you look at the red of Twizzlers, that's not a color you're going to find in nature, ever. Maybe a sunset, but even then. What's in a can, you usually can't produce. When I'm with my students at the restaurant school and they're talking about soda, but it can't be that bad for your chef, come on, I always say, go get the ingredients somewhere, bring it to the kitchen and brew Coke. Oh, you can't? Then you shouldn't eat it. When you're reading a can, if you don't know whether to get a Bunsen burner, brush your teeth with it, or eat it, you probably want to make a different choice. If you've got an ingredient panel that reads like a Russian novel, you might want to look at something else. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to make the change. Marketing has ensured that for us because they give us what 3 ingredients in great abundance? Sugar, fat, and salt. And they put them together usually. So you can't win, right? It seems to me that our taste buds are in constant stimulation. So now you take someone who eats at the Golden Arches all the time and you say, no, man, have a parsnip. They're really good and they're really sweet. And they think, why don't you give me a rice cake that was run over by a truck? This is disgusting. It takes about a month for your taste buds to change, to appreciate the subtleties of more natural food. And Mother Nature made eating sexy, so we do it. What happens if we don't eat? You die. So we want to eat. We want to be able to enjoy it as well. And healthy food has what reputation? It's about as much fun as having your teeth drilled. And in fact, most people, when you invite them for a healthy meal, remember a dental appointment they have to get to. And we all know how much people love the dentist. So as humans, we have to kind of find our way back to natural ingredients. And one of the ways to do that is by understanding what food does. When you understand what food does, it becomes more challenging to choose foods that aren't appropriate for humanity. It becomes more challenging to choose foods that don't serve the purpose of your life. So while eating is sexy, really for us, especially in Chinese medicine and in macrobiotics, what we think about is, does the food I'm eating serve the purpose of my life, right? How many people are tired? Like right now. How many people are tired all the time? Like every time somebody sees you on the street, hey man, how's it going? Oh, I'm tired. How are you? Tired. Everybody's tired. Then you meet that person who's not tired. Do you want to ask them why they're not tired? No, you want to slap the crap out of them because you're tired. Why are we tired all the time? Because we have poor digestion of poor quality food. Right? The quality of the blood that nourishes your cells, that gives you the energy to function, is determined in the intestines. So if you're eating poor quality food and you don't digest it well, because why don't we digest well? We eat while we're walking, we eat on our running up and down the stairs, we eat on the treadmill. I actually saw someone at the gym eating on the treadmill. It's like, wow. So they had to put a sign up at our gym that says no eating on the equipment. Like, duh. Anyway, so, so we eat everywhere. We eat in the car, we eat at the bank, we eat standing at the gas station, pumping gas into the car. So we don't eat in ways that nourish us to eat. So that's one thing. We eat all the time, as though we're never going to see food again. I always think of George Carlin. A couple years ago, before he passed away, he was doing a whole thing on bottled water and how when we were kids, we drank out of the hose when we were thirsty or a fountain, and now we leave the house with liters of water as though we're stepping out not in Pennsylvania, but in the Mojave Desert, and we're never going to see water again, and have managed to pollute the environment with that. My mother died in 1983, and I always say that if she were alive today, she wouldn't be shocked at cell phones, because we all thought when I was growing up, we'd talk into our wrists like Dick Tracy. It wasn't going to be a phone. We were just going to go, hey man, how's it going? She would be shocked that we buy water. She would say, wow, you grew up and you got dumb. Somebody's selling you water in a bottle. So in that vein, like, we kind of have lost our way with the way to feed ourselves. And as we lose more and more touch, how many of you cook on a regular basis? Oh, more than I thought. What's a regular basis? She's shaking her head like, well. What's a regular basis? 5 days a week? How many people cook every day of the week? I know, me too. How many cook 5 days a week? How many cook less than that? Okay, you're not cooking enough. How many people think they don't have time to cook? Bring me your calendar. I'll find you time. I've been teaching for 22 years. Nobody ever brings me their calendar. We're always in a hurry to go do something else. Like, we think we don't have time to cook. We don't have time to stand there. And some people, look, if you work 2 jobs, single mom, 5 kids, you might not have time to cook. I got that. But many of us do have time, and we spend a lot of our days thinking about, I can't wait to get to the next thing. Right? We can't wait to get out of work. We can't wait to get done at the gym. We can't wait to have dinner finished and cleaned up. Why? What are we doing? Watching CNN or something? Or, oh, there's Facebook. I forgot that. Okay. So if we eat junk, we suffer from poor digestion of poor quality food, and the blood quality that gets to your cells is not great. But most people don't think they're sick when that happens. We're just tired. We live a modern life. We're busy. We're tired. If, however, we keep eating poor quality food and develop poor digestion, and that continues on, we start to become inflexible. How many people have aches and pains? All the time. Your knees hurt, your lower back hurts, right? Your elbow, everything. Your joints ache. That's from poor digestion of poor quality food. How many people feel bad about their life? Like, poor me. Like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overworked, no one appreciates me. My family's mean. My kids are ungrateful. My teachers hate me. It's raining today, so my hair will frizz because I have a big presentation in class. Right? All of that comes from poor digestion of poor quality food. So if we ate better quality food, we would wake up to the fact that we live in miraculous organisms that can do whatever we want them to do. Right? When we discovered fire, when humans discovered fire, and we started cooking, our brains got bigger, our guts got smaller, and we became the species that we are. We are the only species that can manifest what we think. Dogs don't build condos. Cats don't build cities. Rabbits don't start wars. Right? We can do whatever we want. With that came the responsibility to take care of the world around us. And instead, we became detached from it and sort of, I want to say arrogant, but not so much. So when you cook, I think you connect to your humanity. And remember, at the table you learn everything. Social justice, communication, sharing, intimacy. At the table is where this little micro community creates and then extends out and out and out. Think about when you were kids and everyone came over for the holidays. It was chaos, but it was the greatest day ever. Everybody couldn't wait until everybody got around the table, and even if they were fighting, as Irish and Italians do. It was great. You didn't care because everybody was together. Now we eat by ourselves. We stand over the sink with a Tupperware container to just get through it. Or we sit in front of the TV, or we read, or we work on the computer while we're eating. None of that is good for digestion, and none of that helps us to reconnect to nature. When you connect to nature, everything changes. Everything changes. I know that sounds dramatic, but everything changes. Did I mention? Okay. So what we're going to do now is create, it's simple. This is a salad. But I chose the ingredients I chose because each one of these ingredients serves a purpose. And when you start to think about food in this way, then you make different choices. When I was studying macrobiotics, there's a philosopher who's sort of the founder of macrobiotics in sort of the Western world, and his name is George Osawa. And George Osawa used to say, his books were written mostly in the 50s and early 60s, and as a woman reading his books, they're a little annoying. Like, they're a little annoying because every bad thing that ever happened to the planet is our fault, because women cooked badly. But he came from a time when women did most of the cooking. So if your husband was a general who was responsible for war, it wasn't him, it was the wife. She's a bad cook. If your husband didn't have a good day at business, it was his wife's fault. It was like this kind of really ridiculous, maybe not so much, thing. So one of the things he said was, if you don't know what food does in the body, you have no right eating it. And I read it the first time and thought, well, that's a little harsh. Fast forward to today, I think, if we had any idea what half this food did, we wouldn't eat it. If we saw processed food without all the processed in it, you know, the emulsifiers, the colors, the stabilizers, whatever, you would never put it into your body. Think about it. We can make cherry jelly that tastes more like cherries than cherries, and we can make anything taste like chicken. So as you move forward and you start to look at food, when you understand what it does, you have kind of a better shot at maintaining your health, or if you don't have your health, regaining your health. So as we put each ingredient into this salad, we're going to talk about what it does from what I call an energetic standpoint, which is creating the person that you are, and also from a nutritional standpoint, so you can see how it works. In Chinese medicine, we say that each organ system is governed not only by its physicality, but by an emotion. And very often you can tell your condition by your emotions. If you're stable and happy and everyone likes to be around you, you're probably doing okay. But if you're always cranky, or you cry a lot, or you're walking down the hallway and you see your peers and they turn around and walk the other way because you're coming, it's probably something about you. Like, maybe you got to look at what's happening. So each one of the ingredients that we put in is going to be reflective of creating health. And we'll talk about how you can balance what might be happening for you. Because yeah, you can, get checkups and see how you feel, and certainly you should do that. But on a day-to-day basis, you can see if what you did yesterday is working for you today. It's pretty simple, right? So the first thing that's going to go into our salad is something called baby arugula. Most of us have had it. It's quite a shishi ingredient. It's very sort of the darling of the food industry. Everyone's using baby arugula now. The thing that's interesting is nobody's paying attention to what baby arugula does. What's the flavor of it? How many have had it? Most everyone's had it, right? What's it taste like? it's peppery and hot and sort of bitter, right? So in Chinese medicine, we say that foods that are bitter or sharp help to nourish and cleanse the liver, okay? The liver is your largest gland. It's responsible for detox, and it's responsible for metabolism of macronutrients, fat, protein, and carbs. It's very hardworking. In Chinese medicine, the emotion that the liver governs is patience or lack thereof. So, if you think you live your life surrounded by idiots, if you think I'll just do this myself because by the time those morons even understand it, if you can't sit in traffic, this is hitting home, I can tell. If you stand in line behind someone at the bank and they're fumbling for their stuff and you think I'm going to throw him through the plate glass window if they don't get their act together, or if you're the guy that no one can come into your office or talk to you before the 9 a.m. class because you'll bite their head off, you might want to pay attention to your liver. You probably also have little frown lines in between your eyebrows from doing this all the time. So eating things like arugula, watercress, escarole, broccoli rabe, Belgian endive help the liver to feel open and happy. So you are happier, as are the people who have to live with you. So this is an important ingredient, particularly as we go into spring. Right? In the winter, we eat more food, we eat more fat, we're less active, so the liver tends to get a little more sort of stagnant. So now in the spring, this is in season, Mother Nature saying maybe they need to clean their livers a little bit so that the first warm day they don't walk around going, oh my God, it's so hot already. Can you stand how hot it is already? This way, you'll say, oh, it's so lovely. Look, it's nice. So arugula can make you happy. So that's our first ingredient. This is getting impressive, right? Okay, so the next ingredient to go in is simple green head cabbage. You know, simple cabbage, like 2 cents a head. Everybody knows it. The greatest anti-inflammatory ingredient of all time. Right? We talk about every disease from the common cold, hangnails, to cancer being caused by what? Inflammation. You want to get rid of inflammation? Eat cabbage. If you bang yourself at the gym and you have a bruise, you put a cabbage leaf on it. You could walk around looking like a Cabbage Patch Kid after a while if you're accident prone, but you know, cabbage will draw pain. It draws inflammation from the body externally, so internally it's brilliant. It's loaded with compounds that are antioxidant, which means, anybody really, what's an antioxidant? We all know we should have them. They're in our face cream, they're in every label, everywhere, antioxidant rich. What's an antioxidant? Prevents cancer how? Helps prevent cancer how? What do they do, antioxidants? Antioxidant. So when you cut an apple, what happens to the apple? It turns brown unless you do what? Lemon juice. Eat it. Eat it. True. Let's say it's going to sit there. Lemon juice. The lemon juice is an antioxidant. It prevents the oxidation. So antioxidants prevent internal oxidation. Well, they prevent it. Nothing prevents it. Every day you're going to wake up, you're a little closer to everything pointing towards Venezuela. But you can slow the process. So antioxidants, anti-inflammatories help the body to stay stable. The cabbage in particular nourishes what in Chinese medicine we call the spleen, pancreas, and stomach, your middle organs, right? We call them your middle organs in Chinese medicine. These are responsible for the emotion of compassion. This is your niceness. You know the people you meet, oh my God, he's so nice. They're so nice. You just want to sit and have tea with them and tell her all your troubles because they're so nice. When the spleen, pancreas, and stomach are well functioning and balanced, you're just nice. If the spleen, pancreas, and stomach go out of balance, your life becomes one big pity party. It's poor me. I'm overwhelmed, I'm overworked, everybody's mean to me, they all think I'm going to do everything. Oh, sure, I'm just a doormat, what do they care? You become that. But when they're balanced, you're nice and everyone wants to hang with you. You're the person that there's not enough seats at the table in the dining room because everybody wants to sit with you because you're so nice. You have empathy and compassion. Think of us as a culture. We either live in poor me or we have no empathy at all. Right? You can watch the 6 o'clock news and not want to blow your brains out. You become sort of inured to it. But when your spleen and pancreas are in balance, It's really hard to watch the news. Okay, the next thing to go in are cherry tomatoes. Little tiny cherry tomatoes are loaded with many nutrients, including vitamin C, which is an antioxidant. More importantly, though, with cherry tomatoes is an ingredient, a compound called lycopene. And lycopene is specific to reproductive health in both men and women, especially since we'll be adding olive oil, which allows the body to assimilate the lycopene at 60% higher a rate. So tomatoes in Italy and in the Mediterranean, they're known as love apples because they create reproductive health. Draw your own conclusions. They help women to have less menstrual cramps. They help men to have healthier prostates. They help us to have better circulation. And when circulation is better, then everything sort of works a little better. You draw your own conclusions. Okay. So the next thing to go in, we're going to julienne this, is a carrot. What are carrots famous for? Carotenoids, right? What do they do? Growing up, why did your mother tell you to eat carrots? They were good for your eyes, okay? So carotenoids help the endocrine system and vision and your liver. Carrots are also what we call a root vegetable. They drill into the soil. They nourish the intestinal tract. And as my husband likes to say, your intestinal tract is your compost system. So as you eat and digest, and what you eat and digest, that's how your body's nourished. Think about your garden. If the compost is crummy, your garden's not so good. If your compost isn't so good, neither is your health, right? So things like carrots not only give us fiber, but they help to nourish the large intestines. In Chinese medicine, the large intestines are responsible for your fortitude, your guts. Think about it, right? We say, oh my God, they went hang gliding. Oh my God, that was so gutsy. Or then you shake the hand of the guy who's like this, and you go, oh my God, what a gutless cold fish, right? We say it all the time, all those little cliches, gutsy, gutless. So it comes from here. This is your fortitude, right? When your intestines are strong, you can stand up and say what you think, and regardless if they make fun of you or not, you say what you think. You're strong. There's no fear. When the intestines are weak, think about it, the days you don't feel well, do you want to get up and take on the world? No. You want to crawl under the covers, pull them up, and hope for a better day. But when you feel strong, you're going to change everything. You're going to bang out that exam, handle that project, manage that difficult person in the office, no sweat, and you're going to get your way in the process. And you're going to be nice about it because your spleen, pancreas, and stomach are working really well. And you won't be impatient because they're idiots, because your liver's happy. So carrots help us to be strong and not have a lot of fear, right? Think about our culture. We're afraid of everything. Every other commercial is for an alarm system. Every other commercial after that is for an anxiety disorder. My favorite one is the social anxiety disorder drug that helps you feel better in social groups but gives you suicidal thoughts, so you're not going anywhere. It's like, okay, I got it. All right, so the next ingredient to go in is zucchini. We're also going to julienne that. Now, what most people think about zucchini is, oh yeah, that's the thing that takes over the garden. My Italian grandmother cooked it 75 different ways, and you make zucchini bread, and that's it. That's all it's good for. Not true. Zucchini is not only loaded with fiber, which is good for digestion. Zucchini grows in the summer. That's when it's at its peak. It's very high in folic acid. It's very high in vitamin C. It's very good for creating cardiovascular health. Very good for cardiovascular health. It's loaded with moisture, helps circulation to improve. It's an amazingly moisturizing veggie. It's great for your skin, hair, and nails. So the next time you have zucchini bread, you might want to be a little happier about it. So since it's responsible for circulation and cardiovascular health, it's also connected to happiness. Right? In Chinese medicine, the heart governs joy. So when you're happy, it means your heart is pumping, right? Things are going along pretty well. It's also where under the heart we house the ability to communicate. When you think of a charming speaker or someone who's charismatic, think Bill Clinton. He could charm a room like that. Amazing. He had very strong energy around the heart. And he was able to communicate his thoughts very clearly, whether you liked him or didn't like him. He was dramatic and charismatic, and all of those things indicate strong heart energy, we would call in Chinese medicine. So when you eat things like zucchini, yellow squash, peppers, summer vegetables, think about the summer. Do you tend more toward happiness or more towards, I'm depressed, I'm staying home to read a book and watch a movie? No, you can't wait to get outside. Think of us now. We have the day. It's warm. It's not even sunny. And we broke out the flip-flops, threw off the coats, and said, I'm going to have lunch outside today. Because we're attracted to that. We're attracted to sunshine. We're attracted to joy. So when the heart is balanced, we have all of that happening, right? So the next ingredient that goes in are artichoke hearts. The artichoke is, hands down, the greatest source of antioxidants in the plant kingdom. It comes from the thistle, right? It's the bud of the thistle plant. So it's very good for cardiovascular health. It's very good for the liver, makes you happy again, and very good for digestion. So the artichoke kind of covers everything and brings it all together. So the next thing we'll add in will be fresh basil. You just take some basil leaves. When we cook in our culture, we just take herbs and spices and throw them in because, I don't know, maybe it'll taste better. We'll just throw it in. That sounds good. Let's put that in there. But really, the study of herbal medicine or herbs in cooking was considered a sacred trust because they're very powerful and very strong. Basil is used to purify the blood. Rosemary is used to balance blood sugar. Garlic is used as an antifungal, antibacterial. So everything in nature is not arbitrary. Everything that we use, parsley cleanses the breath. Right? So we really have so much more going for us than we think. So that's all of the ingredients in there, right? Yeah, okay. So now we're going to make the dressing. But we're going to make the dressing right inside the bowl because it just makes more sense. So we're going to take some extra virgin olive oil. Yay. Do you know how to measure olive oil? How many calories in a tablespoon of olive oil? A lot of people worry about calories. 2 calories in a tablespoon? Oh, I wish. Then it would be free food. It's 120 calories in a tablespoon. Don't panic. A tablespoon of oil is a lot of oil. How do you measure oil when you're making a salad? Do you have to stand there with your trembling tablespoon to make sure you don't get too much? No. This is a teaspoon. 1,001. That's a teaspoon of oil. So 2 teaspoons would be 1,001 again, or 1,002, depending on how you want to do it. Right, so there's your oil that's added in. We're going to add a little paprika. Paprika is stimulating to the circulatory system. That's a good thing. But it doesn't add a lot of hot spice to the dressing. So that's going to go in. You can mix your dressing separately if you want to, but to me it's just another bowl to wash, another whisk to wash. I do everything in one thing if I can. Some sea salt, which will help to break down the fiber of the veggies so that they're easier to digest. It also makes the food taste like itself, so it makes us happier. It's why we miss salt so much when we don't have it. Next, we'll add some black pepper for digestion. See, every single thing has a purpose. Everything. Every single thing. Do you want mustard in here or not? You're not eating it anyway, but mustard's good for circulation, so we'll pretend mustard's in there. Then we have some, I have no idea. Oh, it's peppers, hot peppers. Okay, I had to get that for a second. So we'll put a little bit of hot pepper in there, also for circulation. Some lemon juice. The lemon juice not only will make the dressing taste really good, but more importantly, will help you to digest the fat of the oil. That's why salad dressings always have fat and acid. That's how you digest. It's instinctively known. We know what to do. Every single person knows what to do. We just don't want to do it. So now you take this dressing, mix it into the salad, and in this simple salad, you have the kinds of ingredients that can literally, as dramatic as this sounds, change your health. I know, right? Put a little more salt so it tastes good for whoever's going to eat this later. Okay. So just by making a salad with a little bit different ingredients than lettuce, cucumber, and tomatoes, you can create something that gives you more foundation, more substance, and help you to feel more nourished. So I'm going to open it up to questions now. Does anybody have any?
I was writing down your ingredients as you're talking.
Okay. Oh, good. Did you miss something?
The mustard. What type of mustard? Yellow?
You could just use a yellow mustard or Dijon. It's completely up to you. The spicier the mustard, the more it contributes to stimulating circulation. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
Yes?
Someone I know has diverticulitis.
Yeah.
And was told not to eat like green leafy vegetables, and is always in a bad mood. And my sister said your baby arugula, watercress, and all that helps, and escarole. Is there anything else they can have, or do you think?
Well, here's what I would do. Because what's happening with diverticulitis or diverticulosis, depending which they have, it's the fiber that's messing with them. So what you do is you make the exact same salad. Mix it all together. Make sure you put lemon juice or vinegar. And then once it's mixed, you take a plate. Lay the plate on top and put a weight on it, a 5-pound dumbbell, a jar of pennies. And what you do is you press it. The liquid that comes out of that salad, you then squeeze off, right? And what you've done is broken down the cellulose, that is the fiber that's causing them to have poor digestion. So it's like a wilted salad. They get the benefit of what it can do, but the fiber is broken down for them. So you could do that. Okay? Any other? Wow, they're quiet.
Any more questions? Do you have to peel the zucchini?
No, I don't peel anything. I don't peel carrots. I don't peel squash. I don't peel anything. I just saved so much work for you. Don't peel anything. Just wash it.
Is that why?
Yes, it is because I buy organic, but also I wouldn't peel these anyway. If I thought it was commercial, I'd wash it with a veggie wash, and you know what I mean? But I don't peel anyway. There's so much vitamin C in this outer skin, and you lose so much fiber and enzymes when you peel that you lose about half of the reason you eat the veg. So when people peel carrots, I think, why? And they go, well, they're not as pretty. But they're usually diced. Who's going to see? You peel things if you actually need the aesthetic for some reason or another.
Did you eat that every day?
What, this salad? You'd get a little bored after a while, but some variation of it. We eat salad in our house every single day, and it usually involves some kind of a bitter green to try to, to always keep your liver sort of stimulated and enlivened, because it's the hardest working gland we have. I mean, nothing works harder, except maybe the kidneys, than the liver. Right? Yes?
How about mushrooms and like all the peppers that you have up there?
Yeah.
You recommend all that?
I do. Mushrooms, of course, I really love mushrooms. Mushrooms, especially things like shiitake and maitake, we use therapeutically. Like shiitake we use because they contain a compound that can help with cardiovascular health. Literally clinically proven to take plaque from the veins and arteries, lower blood pressure, reduce cholesterol and triglyceride numbers, like that, like in a couple of months. My dad, when my mom died, he did that classic thing. He married her best friend, and they lived happily ever after. And her cholesterol was ridiculously high. She was Irish, typical Irish diet, and she was she was married to a bartender before he died, and she was very kind of, that rough, almost like a sailor's wife. She was great. I love Fran. She calls me up, she goes, listen, hi Fran, nice to hear from you. My cholesterol's really high. Don't start with me about food. What can I do to lower it? Change your food? Not changing my food, what can I do? And I'm thinking, ay. So I said, look, take a shiitake mushroom, one dried shiitake mushroom, put it in water. I made it this remedy, right? Have it every day. It's going to be boring having it every day. I know, Fran, have it every day for 3 months. She has it every day for 3 months. She calls me up and she says, you little brat. What's the matter now? My cholesterol's down 75 points. Okay, see ya. My mother-in-law, same thing. She went from 258 to 158 on this shiitake remedy. I know, you're like, what's the remedy? Okay. Of course, it's always a big hit. All right, so now you do have to change your food. Okay, so you can't take this remedy and eat Oreos with it, even though they're vegan. So you take one dried shiitake mushroom. It has to be a dried one. Please buy your shiitake mushrooms at a natural food store. Don't buy the 45-pound bag at the Asian market for $6. Seems like a good bargain, but they dry them with formaldehyde instead of natural drying, so it's going to kind of defeat the purpose. So they're called, you'll know, they're Japanese mushrooms, shiitake, 2 eyes, and not the mushrooms don't have eyes, it's S-H-I-I. And you'll know because they're expensive. That's the ones you want. It's a little tightly curled cap, and under the cap are the spores that help heart health. So you're going to take that shiitake mushroom, you're going to soak it in 1 cup of cold water until it's soft. It could take 5 minutes, it could take 30 minutes. Once it's soft, you mince it, take the stem out because the stem can be bitter, mince the mushroom, put it back in the water, simmer it with a pinch of salt or a splash of soy sauce for 10 minutes, drink it hot. Do it every day, first thing in the morning. Skip coffee. I know, sorry. And it could help. It really can help. It really, really can help. Maitake mushrooms, which are kind of like the new darling, have been shown to be effective in breaking down tumors and helping in the process of fighting cancer. So they're very therapeutic. Mushrooms in general relax muscle tension in the body. So if you have a lot of stress and you want to chill out, mushrooms. They also help to break down the accumulation of animal fat in and around organs. So that's why you often have steak served with sauteed mushrooms. Like, we know that that's balance. So mushrooms are great. What was the other thing you asked me about? Mushrooms and, oh, peppers. Peppers we use a lot. Peppers are part of a family known as the nightshades. There's 2 families of nightshades, the deadly nightshades like hemlock, and then there's the nightshades that are tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, and eggplant. And the problem with them for most people is that when you eat a lot of peppers and potatoes in particular, it affects people's joints if they have arthritis and increases that inflammation. But the cultures that eat these vegetables process them before they eat them. Do you know any Italians that don't roast their peppers before they eat them? You roast your peppers. You peel off the skin because it takes out the acid that gives what my grandmother used to call agita, which we also gave her. But, you know, she couldn't roast us and skin us. So you take the skin off peppers. What do you do with eggplant before you cook it? Soak it in salted water. And this brown liquid develops that tastes like vinegar. The salt pulls the acid out. Potatoes in the Italian culture, at least, are always roasted with rosemary and olive oil to neutralize the acid. And tomatoes are either marinated, roasted, peeled, or cooked. Again, to neutralize the acid. Because they bring great value to our diet in terms of nutrients, you just got to get rid of that little acid thing. And even as healthy as we are, and as much as my husband and I are active and athletic and all that jazz, by the end of the summer, by the end of tomato season, I think, please God, let tomatoes go out of season. My joints are killing me. I don't stop eating them, God forbid. But you do think, oh my God, please let them go out of season soon. Right? Because they make you ache. Cherry tomatoes, not so much. We use them raw because they're very low in acid. But big tomatoes, like Jersey tomatoes, my father used to eat them like apples, and then his joints were all swollen and red and achy. Right? So my mother used to marinate them. When he was making hamburgers on the grill, she would marinate them in oil and vinegar. And I used to say, Mom, why can't you just slice tomatoes like everybody else's mother? Put them on the burger. No, we have to marinate them. And so one day she had me taste her marinade, put the tomatoes into soak, and then she had me taste the marinade an hour later. And it was as though somebody had gone by and poured extra vinegar in. She used to drain that off, put the tomatoes on the burgers. My dad's joints didn't hurt. So, any other questions? Yes?
Italians do use a lot of the escarole and all that, but they boil them, and you make your various dinners. Is that going to affect?
Yeah.
You lose your vitamins?
Yeah. My mother and grandmother used to travel to every farmer's market in New Jersey to get the freshest escarole and broccoli rabe, to boil the crap out of it and then cook it for 45 minutes. I know. But Italians have a great appreciation of bitter taste. You know, they have the saying, you can't appreciate the sweet without the bitter. Like, it's all about that. And now the new style of Italian cooking is that you don't boil it first. You just do a quick saute or use it raw. Like, we use escarole mostly raw in our house in salads, more than even cooked, because the benefit to the liver is much stronger in its raw state than if it's cooked. Or sometimes we just lightly saute it with white beans, but, you know. Yes, they did used to cook things like crazy. But it's like, you know, the African-American culture, you say collard greens, and they're like, yeah, that's a thing I cook for 5 hours. until it's mush. So, now we cook collard greens for 30 seconds. And they actually taste like collard greens. It's really good. So yeah, overcooking is a problem in terms of loss of nutrition. Undercooking is always a little bit better. But I'm not a raw advocate either. I think that doesn't allow us to hold our strength. The fiber gets in the way of getting to some of those nutrients. So I kind of go back and forth. We probably are about, in our house, 70-30 raw versus cooked. I mean, cooked versus raw, right? Anything else? Yeah.
Beans and chickpeas are in a lot of vegan recipes.
Yeah.
What role do they play in like the Chinese medicine?
Well, they're our source of protein, right? If somebody chooses to be vegan, we always say that you want to get your protein as low on the food chain as you can, and that would be beans, tofu, tempeh, seitan, which is a wheat gluten that if you've had like Kung Pao chickenless chicken, it's made with seitan. Although it's not good if you have a gluten intolerance, obviously, because it's pure gluten. But they're our protein source. So that's where we get a lot. But they have carbohydrates too, but that's mostly our protein source. So we use beans all the time. And in combination with grain sometimes not so much, because that's a whole myth of you have to have grain and beans together to get a complete protein. That's not necessarily true. It's within a day. So we use beans all the time. And you chew them really well and digest them, cook them well, cook them with a bay leaf so that you're not musical when you eat them. I know that's a problem for people because the fiber is really high, but that's our go-to source of protein. And they're great. Anything else? Yeah.
I have a question about what you said about the meat of today versus the past. What about chicken and things now that say they're produced
Naturally?
range and organic and all that?
Well, if it's certified organic, you are getting, in fact, what you say you're getting, at least so far, right? About, I'm trying to think how long ago it was. It could be as long as 8 years that our USDA, like federal organic standards kicked in, that the federal government took over the standards. Prior to that, our standards were based on California, which is still the gold standard, and the organic standards in California are higher than the federal standards. They're just pristine. But when the federal standards kicked in, it was the first time that animal food was regulated. Before that, you could say anything. You could feed your animals whatever you wanted and say it was natural or organic. Now they're regulated. So when you see organic meat, it means no dead animals in the feed, no antibiotics, no hormones, no steroids, no pesticides, no herbicides, no genetically modified corn, nothing. Otherwise, it can't be certified organic. Is it a better choice? You bet. Absolutely. If you're going to eat it, at least when it's organic animal food, you know it's exactly the real thing. It's real animal food. Because commercial chickens, you have to remember, 85% of commercial chicken that gets to the supermarket is contaminated with salmonella. On top of that, chickens have been engineered, commercial chickens, to make bigger breast meat because that's what we like. We like the breast more than the legs. So they've been sort of altered through hybridizing or whatever process they use. But organic, you're still getting the same chicken as your grandparents ate. So if you can afford it, it's much more expensive because it's harder to produce animals in sort of that more humane, pastured way because we don't have the space to do it. Factory farming became popular because you could produce a lot of meat in a smaller amount of land. When you got things wandering around, you're like, ay, ay, ay. You can't force them to evolve faster. Right? Think about it. We give our animal food steroids. We try our baseball players for taking them. So when you eat organic meat, dairy, eggs, cheese, chicken, whatever, you are certainly getting a much better quality product than you are. And to me, that's much more important than whether or not you eat the chicken. It's more important that the quality of the chicken you eat is actually a chicken. Well, one of the reasons we're taller and bigger generally is because we're coming from now generations of growth hormones. We used to be shorter. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming.